Week 6 of the Dana White's Contender Series just wrapped up, and we've got a couple of contract winners, some deserving, some not. Let's take a look at the card from beginning to end. First up, we had Ahmad Hassanzadeh taking on Dylan Montello. Now, I just made a video a couple of days ago about Ray Longo and his legacy and how he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. Dylan Montello is fighting out of the Ray Longo Sarah gym, and he just got submitted via rear naked choke in the third round by Ahmad Hassanzadeh. Ahmad started out really fast in the first round. Dylan was able to survive, weather the storm, get in a couple of his straight shots, kind of started to wear on Ahmad throughout the end of the first and into the second, but ultimately succumbed to Hassanzadeh's crazy style in the third round. Hassanzadeh knew that he had to get something done. I typically like this from a guy, but he's been on the Contender Series before Hassanzadeh, and I'm not sure if he really was deserving of a contract, despite having a fun, crazy style to start the fight out. His cardio just did not last, but he was able to kind of gather himself in the third round, gather a little bit of that cardio, save himself throughout the second round, and really make a push in the third to get the win. I do appreciate that, but we'll talk about it at the end of the video, whether I think he deserves a contract or not. Okay, so Ateba Gautier versus Yura Naito. So Naito coming into this one looked really, really impressive. Had some well-rounded, decent ability coming into it, but Ateba is he's an absolute hammer. He's a young guy, 22 years old, from Cameroon. This guy is ready to make a name for himself. He's a little bit green in terms of MMA, much like Francis Ngannou was. Think about a young Francis Ngannou coming into the UFC. The guy just had tremendous power and great athleticism. This is Ateba with arguably a little bit more skill overall. His grappling needs a little bit of work. His takedown defense definitely needs a lot of work. But I think this guy's got potential to be something, and with that kind of power, he can make it. He can kind of grow in the sport, get a couple of knockouts, get a couple of wins under his belt in the UFC without pushing too heavily into the top of the division. These guys fight at 185. Yura Naito just looked a little bit flabby in there, and Gautier, my God, this guy just built like a Greek god. The guy's an absolute stud of an athlete. Really, really good stuff from him. He got the knockout victory on the ground. Finally was able to unleash some ground and pound on the ground. That was impressive to see, because up until that point, he was just kind of stalling on the ground. He wasn't getting off as much ground and pound as he could have on the ground. So it was good to see that he was able to finally get something going on the ground, make something of himself on the ground. This was good to see. And so he got the win. Second round, ground and pound, good finish for him. Ateba, young guy, looking forward to seeing him. Okay, so the next one was Benjamin Bennett versus Joey Hart. This was a welterweight fight. This went to a split decision. Benjamin Bennett, just saw him fight in LFA back in, I think, July. He beat up some guy who's kind of at the tail end of his career. Wasn't super impressed by him. So this was one of the next times that I saw him fight against Joey Hart, who was the younger fighter coming into this one. I thought could get it done, had the more impressive resume, had the better ability on the feet. I thought he was going to get a finish here, likely against Benjamin Bennett. But Benjamin Bennett is just a well-rounded, crafty kind of veteran-type fighter. He just isn't all that impressive. He's a really, really skilled martial artist. He's just not dangerous. He's not athletic in the same way that a lot of these other guys are. And, yeah, he got the win. It was a crafty win, good win for him, whatever, but just not impressive, and ultimately he did not get the contract, and I think I agree with that. That's a good decision. Benjamin Bennett just stalled out Joey Hart, just did slightly more than Joey Hart in every facet of the game, and to be honest, that is not what's going to get you a contract on the Dana White Contender Series, and that proved it. On to the co-main, which was Taliesin Teixeira versus Arthur Lopez. Arthur Lopez and Taliesin, they both came in there to absolutely bang. These guys are not the most well-rounded martial artists. I think we saw that in this one. Taliesin moves to 7-0. He just looked like the faster guy. He was able to get his strikes off first. He was able to weather some of the storm, weather some of those shots that Arthur Lopez was throwing. Arthur Lopez was throwing some big shots, trying to knock out Taliesin early. Taliesin obviously had to defend himself, decided, yep, I'm going to just stand here and throw back. We're just going to go after each other. And that's exactly what they did, and Taliesin got the better of those exchanges, and he got the win about 2 or 3 minutes into the fight by knockout. Really impressive. Beautiful straight right, kind of slipped off and threw a straight right. Beautiful right down the pipe. I liked that he was throwing some of the straight shots. Arthur was coming in with some big meaty hooks, throwing wild over the top. And Taliesin was the guy who ultimately got those faster, straighter punches down the pipe. As a heavyweight, if you can throw straight punches and you've got heavy hands, you can go pretty dang far in the sport. And I gotta say, Taliesin looked impressive. He looks like a guy who's young, number one, athletic, number two, and maybe a little bit smarter than some of these guys, despite getting into an all-out slugfest in this one. We'll see what he can do in terms of the rest of his career. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a younger guy coming up. We just need some fresh heavyweights in there. I'm tired of seeing the old guard heavyweights, 30, 40-year-olds. I just don't need to see them anymore. Heavyweights, let's get them in there. They're going to be we're going to start to see them improving in terms of athleticism and his skill overall in martial arts as we go on in the next couple of years, so I'm excited to see that. Maybe Taliesin is the first generation of that. We'll see what happens. And then the main event, it was Elijah Smith versus Aaron Toe from New Zealand, fighting out of Australia, trains with Dan Hooker, trains with Eugene Behrman, Izzy, all those guys. He was undefeated coming in. Both these guys, I think, were undefeated coming in. Actually, no, Elijah Smith had an early loss in his career, kind of suffered some of what may have happened if this fight had gone on any longer. Aaron Toe, this guy just comes forward. He doesn't care about who he's fighting, what's going to happen. He just comes in there to bang, and he proved that today. Absolutely fun on the feet, Aaron Toe is. But Elijah Smith is overall just the more skilled fighter, the better fighter in almost every facet of the game. He was able to toss Aaron Toe to the ground, able to use his jiu-jitsu to be more dominant on the ground. Aaron Toe was able to get on top at times and get off some ground and pound in moments, but overall was not as impressive in terms of his skill set. He's just one of these guys that comes forwards, plods forwards, comes to try to bang on the feet. And sometimes I'm okay with that, but this guy, all he had was his toughness and his grit, and that's what was able to let him survive the whole 15 minutes, because that first round, Elijah Smith had him in trouble on the feet. He was landing some great, beautiful combinations on the feet, kind of throwing hooks straight and then kind of coming over the top with the right hand in a kind of shovel hook or a over-the-top kind of right overhand kind of scenario and getting to Toe's chin. This fight was really fun. It showed the wherewithal that both of these guys had. It showed the toughness that Aaron had and the determination that Elijah Smith had, because he took this one on late notice and he started to gas halfway through the second, but he did come back hard in the third. He was able to withstand some of the damage that Aaron Toe was able to put on him in the second and third rounds, and he weathered the storm. In the last minute and a half, Elijah just turned it on and started coming downhill on this guy. He was putting it on him, and Aaron Toe was almost finished in that last 30 seconds. This was an awesome performance by Elijah Smith. Yes, it was decision. Yes, it was not a dominant showcase, but he took it on late notice. He looked great in the first round, and he showed that he wanted to win the fight in the third round, and that's what fucking counts. This was slightly different than the Hassan Zada fight. Elijah Smith, this guy is also very young, 22 years old, and to prove that he can win a fight early, take some beating in the second round, and then come back and try to win no matter what in the third round, that's the kind of heart that I like to see. And so, Dana White decided on these contenders to get the contract. First, Hassan Zada, who I was impressed with his performance. It was a fun fight. It was a good fight, back and forth. This guy showed that he wanted to win, but I don't agree with the contract. I think this guy has been on the Contender Series before, is getting a little bit older in his career, kind of aging out. This guy isn't going to be around for a long, long time. Is he a fun, exciting fighter? Does he have a fun style? Yes. I just didn't think that he really showed that he's got everything up here. Sometimes up here is what counts. He's fun. Like, I'm not too upset with this pick, but I don't think I would have signed him just based on age and the fact that he's already been here before and proved that he maybe doesn't have the fight IQ to get it done. Gautier, this guy, 22 years old, absolutely green in MMA, does not have a well-rounded skill set, but has the power and the athleticism to carry him. If he can start improving, learning a lot of stuff, he's only 22 years old. I think this guy can really make a name for himself. Absolutely. Great job on signing this guy. Teixeira, same thing. Young guy, power in his hands, athletic, more athletic than most heavyweights. This guy could probably go in there and beat some of the guys. Maybe not an Arlovsky. Arlovsky's a little too crafty for him. But guys at that range, Waldo Costa, the Tafas, he might be able to beat these kind of guys or at least compete with them, and that's fine. Teixeira, good for him, got the win. We can always use fun heavyweights, and he's got a fun style. I'm not upset with that one. And then Elijah Smith, taking this one on late notice, beating a guy who's just tough, gritty. You can't put him away in Aaron Tell. Elijah Smith showed that he has a well-rounded skill set, great judo, great jiu-jitsu, good wrestling overall, and overall great striking ability on the feet as well. His father was also a competitor in the UFC back in the day, so they are one of the only father-son duos, I think maybe the second since Randy Couture and Ryan Couture, his son, I believe. That was his name, if I can remember correctly. Anyway, that's super cool. Father-son combination. His father was in his corner. Elijah Smith taking this one on short notice and putting an absolute beating on Aaron Tao, taking a beating himself and proving that he can come back and get a win in a fight in the third round, going for it all. That's what I like to see. That's that Western fighter mindset. Elijah Smith, great win. Good job. These guys, ultimately, they all pretty well deserved the contracts. Can't really complain about it. We'll see you in the next one.